Hello, rail fans, and welcome back to another edition of Fallen Flags of America. I am your host, L&M Productions, and today we will be discussing the birth, rise, and fall of the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train. So, My Old Kentucky Dinner Train is an upscale attraction that is based in Bardstown, Kentucky, and is hosted by a short line conglomerate, the RJ Corman Railroad Group. The dinner train covers a distance of just over 18 miles from Bardstown to Limestone Springs Junction, Kentucky, which is a 34-mile round trip as it winds its way down the former L&N Bardstown branch. The trip normally ranges in length from 2.5 to up to 3 hours. The Mile Kentucky Dinner Train was started in the late 1980s to complement Rick Corman's first railroad, today known as the Bardstown Line, specifically 1988. Since its inception, the train has become quite popular thanks to Corman's vision of providing top notch service. Unlike many excursions, my Old Kentucky Dinner Train operates a year round, although their lunch/dinner menu can change depending upon the season. As a formal setting, please be aware that the railroad asks patrons to dress appropriately. Their website provides all the details regarding attire requirements. So this video will be a story that is a little bit about the dinner train, but also about who RJ well, what RJ Corman is. Without the vision of Rick Corman, there would be no RJ Corman Railroad Group. Today, it is one of the top short line conglomerates in operation, although ironically did not directly begin in the railroad industry hauling freight. In the June 2007 issue of Trains magazine, under a piece entitled Who's RJ Corman and Why is His Name on the Side of These Locomotives, Bob Weathers offered an in depth look at this unique company. Mr. Corman was a self made man who launched his business in 1973 while still in high school. Using nothing more than a rented backhoe and his pickup truck, he believed that there was great demand in cleaning up derailments. While he struggled for many years, the concept would eventually prove successful for two reasons. One, his company was launched during the industry's darkest era when track conditions were generally wretched and derailments were frequent. Second, he befriended Luther Deaton Jr., a young officer of commercial lending at Central Bank and Trust in Lexington, Kentucky. The two struck up a quick friendship thanks to a related interest in railroading and the loans Corman received, in addition to the bank's patience and belief in his endeavor, provided him time to build a multi-million-dollar empire. Corman would establish his headquarters in Nicholasville, Kentucky, which today has expanded to a 1,500-acre site. His company has branched out into fields far beyond derailment/cleanup services. These include mineral services, providing hardware for railroads, industrial switching, distribution centers, new railroad construction, industrial vacuum services, rental equipment, aviation services. Corman became directly involved in railroading during the 1980s thanks to then Seaboard System President and Chief Executive Officer Richard D. Sanborn Jr., who was impressed with his derailment services. Sanborn wanted to spin off a former L&M branch which ran from Bardstown along the ex-L&M Louisville and Nashville Main Line, now known as the Mainline Sub, to Bardstown. The corridor had originally been built as the Bardstown and Louisville Railroad in 1860 and once ran as far as Hill, Kentucky. It was acquired by the L&N in 1864. The 20-mile Bardstown line began freight operations in January 1987. The following year, it was complemented by a tourist attraction, the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train. which the name of that train totally wasn't inspired by the very famous song of the state, My Old Kentucky Home. Rick Corman. Mr. Rick Corman was your storybook entrepreneur believing in hard work and doing whatever was required to create a successful business. A few years prior to his passing, he was featured in Fortune's magazine March 2011 issue. At that time, his efforts had produced a company boosting 30 million in annual revenue, 50 million in annual profits, and a net worth well into the millions. Today, RJ Corman, whose famous Corman Red paint scheme, the color of his first pickup truck, adorns everything from locomotives, helicopters, and employs more than 700 people. For all of his accomplishments, Corman was a very approachable and personable, personable individual who he demanded the same work ethic from his employees as he did himself. Holding true to his philosophies, the company's future appears to be bright in his absence. Train overview. Instead of simply hosting train rides and hoping to attract a few curious riders, Mr. Corman had a vision with the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train. Despite his relatively obscure location, as James D. Porterfield notes in his books, from the from the dining car, the recipes and stories behind today's greatest rail dining experiences. Corman believed in an upscale service, providing fine dining on board with evening departures would prove successful. It turns out he was right, as the train has been in continuous operations for more than 30 years. For power, the train for a long time until very recently utilized a pair of former Southern Railway EMD FP7 locomotives. In, sp- in spite of its immediate obscure location, the train is not far from several popular regions such as Louisville, Kentucky, 40 plus miles, Lexington, Kentucky, 60 miles, and Fort Knox, 40 miles. If you're planning on riding a trip on the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train, prices vary depending on the train. A standard lunch is less expensive more than an evening diner, which runs more than $80 a plate for an adult. While the prices may seem high, the train has become quite famous for its food and dining experience, so you shouldn't be disappointed with the experience. Dress code requirement. Few tourist railroads require a dress code, however, the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train is not your typical such attraction. As a formal venue, they request customers to be dignified and well dressed. According to the railroad, My Old Kentucky Dinner Train requires dressy, casual attire. For women, reasonable skirts/dresses, full length trousers, or nice skirt or nice denim jeans. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Combined with a dress shirt, polo, or sweater set are all acceptable. For men, collar dress shirts, golf polos, or sweaters paired with dress slacks, khakis, jeans, or nice dress shorts are acceptable. My Old Kentucky Dinner Train adheres to these standards, and we ask that you please come appropriately dressed for our fine dining excursions. The train boards from the restored Louisville and Nashville Freight Depot in Bardstown that dates back to 1860. The building's passenger section was removed in 1953 after the L&N stopped passenger service over the branch. Today, the railroad has spent much money and effort to improve the boarding location by paving the track approaches for easier train access. Additionally, they have installed attractive outdoor lighting so folks can easily see when exiting and entering. At one time, RJ Corman even entered steam locomotive preservation when a former Chinese locomotive Class QJ 2102 number 740, oh my goodness, arrived in New Orleans on December 24th, 2007. Nicknamed Old Smoky, it made its inaugural run on May 24th, 2008, hauling the sand special, which consisted of 6 new gondolas of sand and a caboose. The locomotive, based in Lexington, was relatively new, having been built in 1986 by Datong Locomotive Works for use on China's Jitong Railway. RJ Corman utilized a pair of historical locomotives for its My Old Kentucky Dinner Train attraction. These Both of these locomotives began their careers on the Southern Railway, originally built as road number. Let's see here. The first of which, number 1940, was built in October of 1950 for the CNO&TP Southern Railway, road number 6141. The second road unit is 1941, was built a few months earlier in, let me see here, I think that was March. No, not March. In May of 1950. Like its sister, it was also built for the CNO&TP as Southern Railway 6138. After RJ Corman's acquisition, it enjoyed a series of special runs over the 118-mile Central Kentucky lines, another former L&M route connecting Winchester to Anchorage, Kentucky, also known as the Old Road line. Some thought perhaps it would be eventually used on the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train, thanks to a steam locomotive's natural public appearance. However, the Big 210-2 wound up playing a relatively minor role in the R.J. Corman empire. Then R.J. Corman passed away on August 23rd, 2014, at the age of 58, after a long battle with multiple myopia, a rare type of blood cancer first discovered in 2001. While the future of the big steamer remains in doubt and will likely leave the Corman fold at some point, the dinner train will certainly continue to remain an important, albeit minor, aspect of the company. To learn more about experiencing the My Old Kentucky Dinner Train, please click here to visit their website page at RJ Corman's official website. Just a disclaimer, a link will be provided in the description if you wish to check out the RJ Corman Dinner Train for yourselves. Here, they will provide everything you need to know regarding riding the train, including pricing, directions, the correct attire, lodging, special events, and much more. So, now that we've got through all that, we will discuss the picture of the day here, and then I will get to my personal opinion on the changes of the dinner train as of late. So, here we can see the RJ Corman F units hauling RJ Corman's Derby special at Midway, Kentucky, and given they have not ran a special since 2014, I'm going to have to hazard a guess that was when they ran it, although I might be wrong. So, when I spoke of changes about the dinner train, I was, of course, referring to the 2F units. There has been a whole lot of news in the railfan community as of late regarding RJ Corman and their locomotives. And this all started about a year ago. So back in, I think it was the fall of last year, myself and the Monon Productions were out chasing the dinner train from Bardstown to Limestone Junction and back. Well, it was a good thing we did because while we were out that day, we spoke to one of the employees who talked to us for a minute, and he told us that this would be the last run of the units before they went into maintenance which I presume would be at Lexington, and as such, they'd be removed from the service. Well, I'm not sure if that was what was actually planned to happen or if this was a cover story because I learned a few months later that the F units have quietly been taken off the dinner train, and there it was up in the air because some people were saying they might go to Kentucky Steam, some people were saying they'd be put up on display at Bardstown. I didn't really know what was going to happen. Um, but it was revealed actually just a few weeks ago. I found this, it was confirmed that unfortunately, although efforts were made, Kentucky Steam could not secure the preservation of the F units, and as such, they'd be retained by RJ Corman, and they'd be put on display at Bardstown alongside the South Louisville caboose they possess. Which, as somebody who rode the dinner train when I was a kid, and these things have been the dinner train's power since its inception in 1988, that left me very, very, very sad because I really like F units. I think F units are beautiful. They are one of the most iconic locomotives that EMD ever built prior to them going out of production in the late 1950s with the I want to say the FL9 was the last F unit made um, for the New Hartford, New York, and New Haven Railroad, or better known as just New Haven. And that the FL9 was the last F unit technically made before they ceased production of the engines altogether, due to the fact that by that point F units were obsolete because you have locomotives like the EMD. Let's see, at that time it would have been the GP18 and the GP9. You had, let's see, from Alco, you have locomotives like the RS series with like the RS3s. Um, and by that point, passenger service was on the decline, and nobody would know it, but a decade later, Amtrak would be formed, and that would take over passenger service for the railroads that were struggling because they were maintaining services that were losing money that they couldn't exactly just get rid of because that would be bad PR, and also it would technically leave a lot of places without passenger service, so they had to keep them running. But anyway, um, RJ Corman apparently has made the decision that they are taking the F units off the service. And if I had to, and from what I've seen, the power for the service will be basically whatever road power is assigned to what's known as the Bardstown Local, which services a few industries out that way that are served by rail. But right now, it is the I believe, yeah, the 50th anniversary unit, RJCC 1561, a former CSX EMD GP15 1, and I believe a 50th anniversary GP38 2, albeit I do not have the number on that one. But it's honestly very sad because of the fact that the F units very much complemented the gorgeous look of these classic bug coaches with the streamlined F units. It doesn't get any better than this, but all good things come to an end, I suppose, and I am honestly quite aggravated with the fact that Corman did not really make much of an effort to preserve these units or at least give them a second life, similar to what we saw with the Norfolk Southern OCS units a few years ago, where Half of them went to the Reading and Northern, and the other half went to the the Anderson, Carolina, and Western, or AC and W. Um, and it's just a really sad state of affairs. But the Southern Railway had 4 OCS units, and when Norfolk Southern was formed and they were sold off, I want to say in the, ironically enough, late 1980s, 2 of those units went to Corman and became 1940 and 1941. The other 2, I believe, went to the Great Smoky Mountain Scenic Railroad, and I'm not sure what those numbers are, but all 4 of them are CNO and TP units, and that will mean now that only 2 out of the 4 of those units are still in running condition. So I guess my advice is get it while you can, because you don't know if it will be around tomorrow. Like I said, it's just a really sad state of affairs, and it has me quite upset. It still makes me get teary to talk about it, but I cannot change what Corman does. Corman is a big company. And for those of us who really appreciate the F units, we have all kind of said that if Mr. Corman was still around, he would be very upset. He would not let this happen. He would find a way to keep these engines still around. And most of us believe that he's probably turned in his grave over this decision. Bless his soul, but I, it's just really sad. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Your support really means the most, and it keeps me making these awesome videos. And if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe down below. It's free, and you can always change your mind if you wish. And while you're down there, there's also a like button, so please be sure to hit the like button, as well as to comment below if you have another idea that I should do. But I guess, like I always in these videos, until we see each other again, somewhere out there in the high iron, this is Villain Productions, out.